Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Criminal Justice Committee. If you please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for everyone who took the time out of their schedules to come in today to address the members. We really appreciate that. We have a lot of new members this year who aren't familiar with criminal justice or perhaps not with the way our committee works. And we have a lot of returning members who have been doing this for years, but we like seeing you. So we're glad you came. So I have a list of everyone who came today. But I'm going to start with the person who I think is most important. I see the Chief Justice. He was very busy. If you'd like to go ahead and start the court, we'd be happy to.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity and your time. I understand 10 minutes, 15 minutes?
Whatever you need.
Okay. We've prepared some slides and they're being circulated. So while the slides are going around, I do want to introduce Erin Cregan, who is the general counsel to the judicial branch, and I know she's well known to at least the veteran members of this committee. And we both stand ready as you undertake your work this year to assist the committee in its work. The objective of my presentation today is really to give committee members an overview of our state justice system, the judiciary in the state of New Hampshire. So that's what I'm here to talk about, and please interrupt with any questions as we go along. So page 3, please. It's an overview of my presentation. 1, structure of the judicial branch, and 2, the challenges and opportunities that we face. Next slide, slide 4. On the left, you see a visual representation of the structure of the judicial branch. We have 2 trial courts, the Circuit Court and the Superior Court. We have 1 appellate court, which is the Supreme Court, and all 3 courts are supported by the Administrative Office of the Courts. And I'm going to take a minute to go through each one of those elements. Starting with the Circuit Court on the next slide. The Circuit Court was created by this legislature in 2011. It combined the District Court, the Probate Court, and the Family Division into one unit. On the next slide, you will see that the Circuit Court is broken into 10 circuits, 1 for each county, and we have 34 individual locations around the state. On the next slide, you will see that right now our head count is 49 Circuit Court judges. That is our authorized number at this point. We are fully staffed with judges. Those judges, those full-time judges, their work is supplemented by 1 part-time judge, 2 per diem judges, and some judicial referees and senior active judges who are able to discharge judicial functions subject to the ultimate approval of a sitting circuit judge. So that's how the workflow gets handled by judicial officers in the circuit court. Next slide, perhaps the most, one of the more important ones is the number of cases flowing through our circuit court. These are 2023 calendar year numbers, 102,000 cases. And you'll see at the very top of that circle of interest to this committee, 45,000 criminal cases. This is before the felonies first unwind. So these numbers, that 45,000, are the misdemeanors that the circuit court has jurisdiction over. Superior Court has jurisdiction over felonies, circuit court misdemeanors. So this number is going to be revised to reflect felonies first. I just don't have those numbers right now. Next slide, Superior Court. The Superior Court is our court of general jurisdiction in New Hampshire. Of relevance to this committee, it is the court where jury trials take place and is the court where all felonies are prosecuted. It also has civil jurisdiction for cases over $25,000. On the next slide, you will see the breakdown of our caseload by case type. And again, on the left in the yellow, about 8,700 criminal cases flow through the Superior Court. And again, these are 2023 numbers. Both courts, both Circuit and Superior Court, handle search warrant and arrest warrant requests from law enforcement agencies around the state. So that's part of the jurisdiction of both of our trial courts. Next slide. We have 11 Superior Courts, 1 in each county, 2 in Hillsborough, 1 in Nashua, and 1 in Manchester. Our Superior Court bench is likewise fully staffed at this moment. We're authorized at 22 Associate Justices and 1 Chief Justice. Next slide. Of particular interest to this committee, given its work on House Bill 318 earlier this in December, we took on 3 new magistrates. And on January 1st, they began their work. And their jurisdiction, as directed by administrative order, the Supreme Court is listed here. They have been fully trained by judges from both courts, and their weekend duty, which was the principal motivating reason for creating magistrates, not the only one, began on their first weekend in January. So our 3 magistrates are switching off weekend by weekend. They serve 9 to 1 on each of the weekend days. And then on the weekdays, they are integrating into our trial courts to assist with matters that they're authorized to handle in our trial courts. Next slide, the Supreme Court. As I said, 1 appellate court in New Hampshire, that's the Supreme Court. We have 1 Chief Justice, 4 Associate Justices. In addition to hearing appeals, we have general superintending authority over the legal profession in New Hampshire, and therefore we handle matters such as attorney discipline, bar admissions, and we interface regularly with the Bar Association. We are a unified bar in New Hampshire, which means every lawyer in New Hampshire is required to be a member of the bar. Next slide, you will see our caseload. These numbers on your slide are for 2023, and I do want to give you some numbers from 2024, the year that obviously just finished. You'll see in 2023, we issued 61 opinions. That number for 2024 is 71. The bottom number is the key indicator of our productivity. And in 2023, it was 728 dispositions. In 2024, it was 752. And that's the highest number in our court since 2015. So our productivity is at a high level over the last 10 years for last year.
Could you just real quick tell the members what a final disposition means?
So every case that comes into our system will be handled either through a full-blown argument or through through orders issued by the 5 justices coming together. And in some instances, we will decline jurisdiction where jurisdiction is not mandatory. So the dispositions is how many of the cases that came into our system are actually resolved one way or another by the Supreme Court. Very quickly, we are all on the next slide, supported by the Administrative Office of the Courts. And then on slide 18, you can see the various important functions performed by the AOC, including our legal and legislative representation. I should have mentioned Av Harris is here as our Director of Communications, and various other functions that help assist the court staff and judges around the state are handled by the AOC. Very quickly, I'd like to share with the committee some of our both challenges and opportunities. Next slide is 20. And I want to go through each one of these very, very briefly, but you can see our challenges and opportunities listed there. 21, challenge number 1, and it is the issue that I am most concerned with. It's the issue that keeps me up at night more than any other, which is the safety and security of everyone who passes through our doors. And we have made important strides over the last several years in terms of enhancing that safety and security. We have benefited from ARPA dollars that the Governor Sununu, his office, helped make available to the judicial branch. And one of the projects we are undertaking is a site-by-site physical assessment of security threats and security enhancement opportunities for each one of our locations. I will say our security is sort of bifurcated. In circuit courts, it's handled by court security officers who are employees of the judicial branch, work in the AOC, and we are greatly benefited in Superior Court with a tremendous partnership from the sheriffs, county sheriffs, who are in charge of security in our Superior Court. And I want to acknowledge and thank that partnership. It's absolutely essential in keeping our everyone who passes through our doors safe. Next challenge, not really of concern to this committee's jurisdiction, but I do want to note it in Superior Court. The influx of cases arising from the YDC matter has been significant. And 1,300 filings in Superior Court against, as you saw, a caseload of 24,000. It's material. And it's material also because these cases are quite complex. They generate a lot of motions. They consume a lot of court time and a lot of staff time. Indeed, if Chief Justice Howard were here, he will tell you he's got an employee in the Electronic Filing Center in Manchester who comes in at 5 o'clock in the morning to process all the motions involved in the YDC cases. The next challenge is access to justice, and this is sort of a perennial challenge facing our judicial system. Not sort of, it is. And any given day, walking into our circuit court, up to 90% of litigants on either side of the case are self-represented. One issue that I do want to call to the attention of this committee that is quite serious is what I think is fairly described as a crisis in our indigent defense system. Indigent defense is principally handled in our state by the New Hampshire Public Defender's Office. That is a publicly funded organization. Since 2010, it has had a 262% increase in its retention, dropping in retention. And that's augmented by increased caseload and caseloads that are more sophisticated. And they're more sophisticated because a reason is because of the proliferation of electronic evidence, particularly video evidence. Many of our law enforcement officers are now having body cams, and obviously video cameras are much more of a reality of law enforcement. So this is contributing to the caseload, contributing to the workload in our public defender's office. This affects the entire criminal justice system. Criminal defendants are entitled to representation under both the state and federal constitution. And you will see that the LBA issued a report on the Judicial Council last October and found that in March of 2024, between 20 and 40 incarcerated defendants had no attorney, and between 100 and 125 non-incarcerated. So these are constitutional rights that are in play. And when the accused don't have attorneys, it affects us in the court system for obvious reasons. We can't proceed with the case, and it affects the entire system. That said, we're also making progress, thanks in part to the legislative initiatives on the civil side. The legislature approved a bill to permit paraprofessionals to represent clients in designated case types in our circuit court. Every circuit court in the state, we're implementing that program, and we're pleased by the results so far. Another opportunity is our treatment courts. The adult drug court has been in place, legislatively sponsored for more than 10 years. We have mental health courts in both Superior and Circuit Courts. The legislature approved last year a new Veterans Court, and we're working on a homeless court initiative with the mayor of Manchester to try to assist in in resolving those problems. Broadly speaking, treatment courts are an opportunity to identify those in our system who would benefit from treatment in a clinically appropriate setting so that they don't come back into our system. That's broadly speaking our objective. The Commissioner of Corrections is here. She's been a tremendous assistance in both our treatment court and mental health court initiatives, but also the next opportunity I want to talk about, which is a broad judicial branch initiative to look at how we can better serve those in our communities suffering from mental illness. The slide 26 begins just a couple slides on innovation. We try to use the resources we have as efficiently as possible. One great example is landlord-tenant. There are more than 7,000 cases in circuit court on landlord-tenant, and thanks to some federal dollars, we've been able to establish a diversion program with a great success rate. So it gets resolution to both the landlords and the tenants, and it reduces the caseload in our system. Next slide, 27. In our Superior Court, we are moving to a platform where all evidence is electronically presented, and there are efficiencies to the court and to the attorneys involved on both sides. And then finally, we're using technology, particularly text, on both civil and criminal side in both of our courts for reminders, understanding that that's how many of the people we serve receive information. It's very, very successful in reducing failure to appear rates. So with that, that's a very broad overview. Happy to answer any questions. You will have my contact information and that of Aaron on the last page, and we look forward to engaging with the committee over the next year. And thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity.
Thank you for coming, Mr. Chief Justice. Do any of the members have questions? I have one myself. Has the bar looked at possibly as a condition of membership mandating so many or hours to indigent defendants per year? And I don't mean to put you on the spot.
I think mandate is with respect to pro bono hours or
Yeah.
delivering. There is an encouragement
Yeah.
to engage in pro bono activity, but a mandate is
It's not required.
right.
Okay.
But I will say, Mr. Chairman, at least since I've been there, 2021, this crisis has been percolating.
Yeah.
And one of the things that the Supreme Court did was convene the large firms in our state to say, we've got a real problem in our indigent defense system. We need attorneys to step up and help. And I will say the response was extraordinary.
Okay.
And we were able, on a volunteer basis, to get attorneys from many of our firms around the state to come into the system and assist with this issue.
Are they still doing that?
Yes.
Oh, that's good to hear. I'm glad.
Yes.
I'd rather not talk about mandates if they're doing it. One other question I had, has the court explored any kind of a partnership with UNH Law whereby someone could get some tuition waived if they dedicate so many hours?
To my knowledge, no. But, and I know the chair is very interested in this, and you communicated to General Counsel Cregan about this. It's an issue of great interest to me nationally.
Yeah.
There are some really interesting initiatives around the country about granting tuition conditioned upon serving delivering pro bono hours, and particularly addressing a problem that is existing in virtually every state, which are called legal deserts, where there are just vast swaths of geography with less than one attorney for 1,000 residents.
Wow.
And for instance, in South Dakota, there's a really interesting pilot program they're piloting, which does exactly as you're suggesting. Oh. So there's lots of interest and energy around the country about this, and I think it's a conversation worth following and having.
Good. That's great to hear. I think we should take advantage of the fact that we own a law school, I think. So I think that's something I'd like to pursue. That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But
Any
I
fur-
will say the loss, we do benefit from,
Oh, I know.
in my opinion, a really forward-thinking law school, which is heavily engaged in our community. And for instance, the Daniel Webster Scholar Honors Program, a true jewel
Yeah.
of our state, does with those attorneys, young attorneys, they undergo the first year of curriculum of any law student and then spend the second 2 years doing what's basically an experiential learning program under specialized curriculum developed in partnership with the Supreme Court. Part of that experience is delivering pro bono hours,
Oh, that's good.
including
Starts
to
them off.
victims of domestic violence in the Bar Association's DOVE program.
That's excellent. I'm glad you shared that with us. Representative Saylor, you had a question? No, I'm sorry. She used to sit there.
It's okay. It's a good person to be confused with. I was just curious. I had met with folks from 603 Legal Aid and also New Hampshire Legal Aid, two separate programs, but they kind of work together and serve different demographics of folks. And so I was just wondering, when people do pro bono, is that the main institution that they do it through, or organization that they would do pro bono hours with?
Pro bono opportunities, there are many. Many of them are offered through New Hampshire Legal Assistance, and 603 Legal is really the hub now for coordinating the pro bono program.
But it's not necessarily the only.
No, but they screen clients and then find appropriate opportunities for lawyers. It's not necessarily the only opportunity to deliver pro bono hours. They're important ones, and they're designed to make pro bono work for attorneys, sort of create an easy button for them,
Right,
if you will. And for instance, if they work closely with the domestic violence DOVE program, domestic violence emergency program, and getting lawyers trained up and involved in that program. So it's to answer your question, really, really, really important, but not necessarily the only opportunity for lawyers.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you again for your time. I don't believe anyone else has any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
Good morning, members of the committee. My name is Erin Cregan. I'm the general counsel for the court system. I will try to follow the Chief Justice very briefly. Just to introduce myself to new members, I'm going to leave a little stack of business cards right next to Representative Murphy, who I'm not favoring only because she represents my parents in Merrimack. But it's going to have my cell on it. Please feel free to email me, call me, text me with any questions, any information that you need from the judicial branch in order to do your legislative job. Many members of the judicial branch are in adjudication during the day, but I am a single point of contact. I will get you the information that you need from anywhere in the judicial branch. Please feel free to reach out to me. I'm also available to come to hearings. If you need to have someone from the branch part of the discussion, let me know. I'll appear when a legislator requests for us to be present. So I just want to introduce myself, and please feel free to reach out to me anytime.
Thank you very much. I would just tell the members that if you or any of your colleagues are considering legislation that will impact the judiciary, that is your source right there to talk to before you put pen to paper, because you may end up rewriting something because it won't work, and she'll tell you in advance whether or not it'll work. Thank you. Also, these handouts from the Chief Justice, hold on to these. There's a lot of good information in here when you go to write bills or even look at the bills that are coming to us. Browse through that and you may find answers to questions. Thank you again. Now we have the Attorney General's office. I thought I saw the general here. Did he leave?
Excuse me. Sorry, he's just getting back from a trip from DC, so he's not available to attend today. Good morning, members of the committee. My name is Matt Broadhead. I'm an Associate Attorney General. I'm the head of the Division of Legal Counsel.
And good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Thomas Velarde. I am also an Associate Attorney General. I am the Director of the Division of Public Protection, which includes the Criminal, Consumer, and Environmental Bureaus.
And so together we represent kind of we oversee all of the attorney operations at the Department of Justice. My division has 7 units and bureaus. We have the litigation unit in the Civil Bureau, the client counseling unit, which provides agency advice to all of the state agencies except for 2. The other 2 are attached to the Public Safety and Infrastructure Bureau. Those are highway funded agencies, and so that bureau is also highway funded. So I oversee that bureau as well as the Charitable Trust Unit, the Debt Recovery Unit, the Civil Rights Unit, and the Election Law Unit. So that's kind of the functions that all kind of report up through me. And Tom gave a brief overview of his bureaus. Is there anything else you want to say about your bureaus?
Just for the purposes of this committee, so criminal is broken into several different units, just as Associate Broadhead just articulated for his side of the house. Criminal includes, first and foremost, the homicide unit. Then there is a drug unit. There's a public integrity unit. There's Medicaid fraud unit. And we have a special unit devoted to the YDC litigation cases. So those are just within the Criminal Justice Bureau, and some of the different operations that are contained in that, which from time to time I will come and talk to you about. There might be legislation touching on some of those topics.
And in terms of my the areas where my division might overlap with your committee work would be really we provide general counsel to state police, the Department of Safety. So if there's issues that come up with the motor vehicle code, issues that come up with immunities that state agencies and employees have during the course of civil litigation, those are types of issues that our litigation unit, our Public Safety and Infrastructure Bureau would be interested in looking at. In terms of legislative issues, when we do review legislation, we obviously get fiscal note requests for anything that might impact the agency operations. So we try to provide an honest and frank assessment of what we think the impact would be to the department. Outside of that, we generally, because we're obligated as the Department of Justice to defend and enforce any law that the legislature passes that's signed by the governor, we tend not to weigh in too much on substantive policy because we don't want our words to be used against us in some sort of lawsuit later on. So we take our job seriously. We maintain the independence. It doesn't matter. We're party blind in terms of once legislation is passed and becomes enacted into law, it's our job to enforce it.
Would you be a good resource for members to contact if they had a question about legislation that they were thinking about bringing before it actually becomes law?
Absolutely. Tom and I, we would be the ones that would kind of marshal any sort of legislative response or response to the legislature. Anything touching the criminal code, Tom would handle. Anything affecting the Department of Justice operations would most likely be me.
Any questions from the members? Seeing none, I thank you for your time and coming over here today.
Thank you.
We'll see you shortly, I'm sure. Yeah, I know. Commissioner Hanks?
I know. Good chair.
I apologize, Commissioner. I didn't realize you had to go. I just now saw this note that said that you were in a rush, so I would have called you first.
No apology necessary. I appreciate it. I've been working for a long time, so I had to check the clock. I've been in the prison this morning. So good morning, Honorable Chair and members of the committee. It is a pleasure to be here again. For the record, my name is Helen Hanks. I'm the Commissioner of the Department of Corrections. To my right is Jane Graham. She is our Strategic Communications Administrator and our Legislative Liaison. So to some of the questions already asked this morning, if you have pending legislation or questions around legislation you might pass, if you'll direct them to Jane, and we'll make sure we get all of our contact information to the committee. We're happy to both give you statistics that will inform your legislation, which has often been a resource, and follow up on any impacts to the department to assist you as you navigate your service to the state of New Hampshire. The packet before you, I apologize, does not have page numbers. It's a series of information intended to give you a good baseline of what the organization does on behalf of the Department of Corrections, what our mission and vision is. That's the first and foremost, which is a balance between public safety and rehabilitation while ensuring that we provide the humane custody, supervision, and control of individuals sent to incarceration and supervision under probation and parole in the state of New Hampshire. The second page is our values statement as a department. We revised these some years ago to make sure that our staff were involved in articulating what we do every day. And I just want to point out one of them. It takes one team in our department to be successful. We have a large law enforcement officer cadre, in addition to the same number of professionals that each one of our community needs to be successful: nursing staff, mental health staff, certified educators, so on and so forth. On the following page, you'll see our large departmental organizational structure, including our housing units, and an overview of those. Not pointed out here, but should be pointed out here, is we have 11 district offices across the state of New Hampshire where our probation and parole officers do their fine work in our New Hampshire communities. Now it gets into the next page, my favorite, because I love data. That is something you'll learn about me. This is our current data of who is incarcerated in the state of New Hampshire in our facilities. Out of our facilities means they are out of state in another facility being supervised, just so you understand what that means. I always like to provide the number of individuals by minimum sentence structure in the state. We'll tell you by way of information, I've been with the department on my 22nd year. There has been a shift in sentencing. That's not a judgment statement. That's just a reality. The average sentence structure was 3.5 to 7. Now it's pushing closer to 5 or more years. The reason for that is we have a large population of individuals who have violated criminal code around sexual assault. And so those sentences are longer for correct reasons. And then the next data set is around people's maximum sentence structures. One thing we can never control for in reporting data to all of you is whether somebody has a consecutive sentence. We can't predict their movement into that consecutive sentence. So this is a snapshot based on what people are serving at the time of the data set. The following page shows you the trending of bookings into our facilities. We break it out by month. We look at men and women. We do monitor incarceration rates. It does matter. We do look for overcrowding and need to pay attention to the number of beds we're utilizing in comparison to the staff we have to make sure we provide the appropriate supervision. That's the data set on that page. The following page breaks out the demographics of those incarcerated in the state of New Hampshire, and in very broad groups on the bottom of the page breaks out their very detailed crime into higher categories of crime. So you'll see the largest percent in New Hampshire are crimes against persons. I've already articulated that, and then other assaults and things of that nature.
Have you ever looked at how we stack up against the other states with these crimes against persons?
That's a wonderful question, Chairman. And the answer to that is yes. We have a higher rate of individuals incarcerated for sexual assault in the state of New Hampshire. About 1/3 of our men's population are in for either aggravated felonious sexual assault or felonious sexual assault. In comparison to other states, what I have found nationally is they generally plea their cases down. So those that are incarcerated for similar offenses in other states end up under, I would call it, our parallel category of second-degree assault. So their sexual assault rates look lower, whereas our prosecutors prosecute to the fullest.
Thank you.
It also provides me an opportunity to let you know that we are ranked #1 in the country for corrections and crime. And what that means is we have a very low national crime rate in comparison to other states. And we actually are one of the only states that have a reduced incarceration rate. And so from my vantage point, leading the organization through the pandemic, when states chose to let people out before their minimum sentence structure, we did not the work we've done in our state with the Chief Justice on the judiciary side with specialty courts have positively impacted appropriate diversion from incarceration. And we've really been nimble before the pandemic to effectuate a reduction in the use of incarceration where appropriate.
Welcome, Commissioner.
Nice to see you, sir.
I'm looking at the demographic page and the population by age and the 60 and over category, which is larger than I thought it would be, but you know, it doesn't matter. How
You're
many-
safe, Representative. You're okay.
How many of the 60 and over are serving life without parole sentences?
Representative Sher, I can't give you that number on age. What I can tell you is we have approximately 100 individuals who will never leave our custody because of their sentence structure. I just don't have it broken out by age break.
And a follow-up question. Would it be fair to say that the medical costs for the over 60 population are more significant than the younger population?
As we're talking about age, I want to be careful because in incarceration, the costs around healthcare actually start to increase for individuals who are 51 and over. So to the point of your question, yes, healthcare costs increase based on age, but it starts at the lower one step down demographic range. And I can give you some follow-up of the average healthcare costs by age range.
And last question. Roughly, what does it cost per person to incarcerate someone for a year?
Approximately $452 a day was our last statistic.
Thanks. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Representative Murray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and nice to see you again, Commissioner.
Nice to see you as well.
In the past couple of years, I've obviously done a lot of research in, your work. And I believe some statistics I saw over the past couple of years illustrated us having a really high rate of parole violations and people being in prison because of parole violations. I was just wondering if that's true, if you could speak to that at all.
Certainly, I can speak to that now, or I could speak to it when I get to those slides. Happy to.
When
do
you
it.
get to it, yeah.
Yep.
And if anyone has, what is your question? Go ahead.
I just have a question about the importance of the sentence of a year or a year and a day and how you have 46 people that are there and how some people go to jails and some people go to prison.
Thank you for that question. Yes, individuals that you'll see on this the previous page on sentence structure, when it's 1 year or less, they go to our county jails. If an individual in our county jail system has multiple consecutive misdemeanor charges, or the statute as it currently states, at the 366th day, they would come to the Department of Corrections and we work with our county superintendents on those decisions. When those decisions happen, if we work together and say they're better served staying in the county jail, maybe it's 345 days they have to serve, the Department of Corrections pays back to the county jail the average daily cost of that person's incarceration. So I think that's your answer to your question. You're welcome. All right. Average cost by healthcare by age. Following page, I want to thank the legislature for your support several years ago through the budgeting process and the reallocation of our law enforcement ranks in the Department of Corrections. This slide shows you where we were, and in the bottom right-hand corner, it shows you where we rank as far as competitiveness across law enforcement in the state. And it's made great strides. I'll send some follow-up data. At our worst point, we had over a 50% vacancy rate in our correction officer rank and file. We've done a tremendous job over the last year in reducing that to 42%. These are nimble numbers, so 1 or 2 losses shift them. But what that means is at the highest point, we had approximately 189 vacancies out of 589 opportunities, and now we're down closer to 162 or less. Those are net gains to the organization. And in 2022, we had a high rate of retirement from our system, well-deserved post the pandemic and the stress in a correctional environment. And that's also normalized itself where we had historically seen anywhere between 15 and a high of 20 people retiring. We're back to that normative departure rate at retirement, and the same separation rate when people self-select to leave our employment, that number is normalized. And I'll send some update numbers with that regard. What that means
With
is,
that being said, you guys you're not fully staffed. You're still a mess, right? With the staff.
thank you, sir. I was about to say, with that being said, we are still working very hard against the same tide that our other law enforcement partners experience in the state of New Hampshire. And I'm proud of our state. The expectation to join the ranks of law enforcement are the same across all lines of those opportunities, whether you're a community police officer, a state trooper, so on and so forth, and a corrections officer. And we hold that standard, and we hold that standard on purpose because there's a lot of authority and integrity. And so while we're all competing against all of those same entry-level people, trying to attract people to come into corrections, and I think we're doing a much better job to explain why that mission is so important. But I have to tell you, if I was a young person and I was going into law enforcement, I'd pick a cruiser in my freedom in the community. Because I wouldn't have known all that I know now. But we actually today started the day with approximately 25 of our staff who have stepped up and said they want to voluntarily be part of our recruitment and retention efforts as ambassadors of corrections. So we need your help. Any opportunity to include us in any legislation on recruitment of law enforcement, we want to be part of that legislatively, and we want to share the ship because we also know fundamentally we cost the state of New Hampshire a lot of money to fulfill our mission. When we're looking at $27 million in overtime, that is a burden that our corrections officers are facing every day, and we've done a lot of creative things within the scope of our operations to give them a chance to go home and use other relief resources, but the cost of our staff is significant to the general fund dollar. Maybe I should just stop there. I don't know. Sorry, sir. Moving on, I wanted to move into the other side, the rehabilitation and treatment side of the organization. And so on this next slide, give you a tenor of the work that our mental health clinicians are doing by area, total number of appointments, total number of clients served in those appointments, and across different lines of mental health contact. But our mental health team is really working very hard to treat the diagnosed illnesses of individuals incarcerated in the state of New Hampshire to meet the constitutional requirements that we are required to do, but also to find wellness in individuals and to reduce, and we'll get to it, Representative Murray, that reincarceration rate due to parole violations. And that's an important part of our conversation with you today. The following slide just lists a very high overview of the outpatient. We call them outpatient. No, they're not leaving the institution, but they're not in I call it a psychiatric bed in the secure psychiatric unit. They're moving from their housing unit to the mental health floor within the corrections unit. And these are the services in a high level that we offer within the department. Included in those services is we've gotten creative in how we use our housing units and created modified therapeutic communities within our Department of Corrections. And what that's done is allowed individuals who acknowledge their mental illness, who want to come together and become more compliant with their treatment, increase their skill sets and coping skills around that. And that's made a marked difference in those housing units. When you literally come together with a common purpose, I don't think we'd be surprised, you get better. And so the following sheet are infographics that we're trying to put together to both educate anybody who we can have listen to us about the work we do. And one of those units is the focus unit. We have a high prevalence rate of individuals with substance use disorder incarcerated in the New Hampshire Department of Corrections. And we need to tackle those challenges with the relapse and the impact on individuals in the justice system. This program was implemented some years ago and is showing a marked stride in reducing returns to incarceration. And I'll leave it to you. I know you'll read it. And if you want follow-up, we'll engage in that follow-up. The other units we talk about are called wellness units, and we have an intensive sexual offender treatment service. You're going to see a slide that looks like this. This slide is a result of working with the Council of State Governments and trying to understand specifically the rate of opioid use disorder that we're treating in the Department of Corrections. So on any given day in our department, we have approximately 45% of people incarcerated who have an opioid use disorder. That's around 800 people. Of those 800 individuals, of those 800 individuals, 80% of them have elected to be on some form of treatment, a medication-assisted treatment. And we have a robust program in which we engage in that constitutional treatment intervention as well. This slide was also very informative because it taught us the work we were doing as a department, connecting people to Medicaid. So thank you for authorizing Medicaid expansion. It has positively impacted individuals incarcerated in their exit, and we're really connecting them to that service, and it's making a difference, and they're using those services upon release within 7 days of release in the community and connecting for their substance use treatment, their pharmaceuticals, and other treatment interventions. And so the segue leads me to another infographic. We, the state, remitted what's called an 1115A reentry waiver to the Center for Medicaid Medicare Services. We were approved for that waiver, and we started on January 1st, 2025, with the authorization 45 days prior to someone's release when they're Medicaid eligible. We can have 2 provider contacts and 2 peer-to-peer contacts, and Medicaid will cover 30 days of discharge medications. And I believe very firmly that this initiative will decrease people's returns to incarceration. And so I leave you with what I call is a high-level infographic, and we can get down into lots of detail at your personal discretion. Critical to the success of that program and even the work that we do is our case management services. So I've given you a high-level slide of our case managers, what they do, the areas that they support individuals, and they're going to be critical as they are now in helping people apply for Medicaid, have those appointments scheduled, and have those contacts prior to release. The following page gets into the detail of the risk assessment tool. This is a risk of recidivism assessment tool. This is not a risk of violence or those clinical risk assessments people talk about. This is literally specific to criminogenic factors and your risk of return to incarceration. So I outline that in a high level way for you on the next slide. Our case management team does what we call internal referrals to other areas of the department, as well as external referrals to partners in the community. I'll give you a little high-level overview of those interactions. They're really the navigator for a person incarcerated. When somebody is booked into our system, a case manager starts on the moment they meet with them and says, what do you need to do to find your path to parole, to find your path out of this institution? And even for the 180 people who won't leave our institution, what are you going to do for your own betterment while you're here? And they do that annually and update those plans at any rate and pace that the information changes within our electronic system. The following page represents also psychotherapeutic programs. They're not therapeutic. They are delivered by non-clinicians that we offer within our department to improve people's social emotional learning and other coping skills and factors that resulted in their incarceration. So I'll leave that to you as well to read. We have a robust educational service. This is the statute that created the Corrections Special School District. We're the only corrections department with a certified high school, and we should be proud of that. Other corrections departments, when they have a corrections teacher, it is a corrections teacher. Our teachers are certified by our Department of Education, are qualified to teach in our normal high school systems. We deliver programs so that people can attain their high school diploma, and we will invite you to those graduations. They are profound. I'm a tough lady, even I've teared up there, and they are impactful. And we like to really celebrate those moments, whether somebody is 65 getting that high school diploma or 25. In addition, we support people to get their high school equivalency. In New Hampshire, that is called the HiSET. And then we have a robust career technical education program that helps individuals, and I've already moved 2 slides ahead, probably 4 slides ahead, so there's more detail. The Career and Technical Education Center really is the next step after your base education, which is to help build those employment and vocational opportunities. Again, we opened a licensed cosmetology program during the pandemic. We continue to open it, and now we've advanced it, and we're opening a barbering program that just started at our men's prison in Concord. We look for all types of opportunity and continue to look for opportunities to connect people to employment and really a wonderful occupational release because we know that reduces reincarceration and improves people, period. We have been working with White Mountains Community College, and I can't say any more positive things about White Mountains Community College to provide under the Second Chance Pell Grant opportunity people with access to college level degrees. We started at our Northern New Hampshire Correctional Facility and are working with them even in our Southern tiered facilities, as well as partners at NHTI and the Southern New Hampshire University. And so we really thank the legislature for passing the commission that looks at education in corrections, and that's really moved forward, and we look forward to the first report was published, so that is available as well. Incarceration affects families, so I've also included an infographic on our Family Connection Center, so you can see the number of individuals we're supporting, both in partnership with the DCYF and reconnecting parents through their programs to be effective parents for their children when they've lost that right in custody, as well as general opportunities for individuals to improve their parenting skills, their visitation and communication skills through video contacts that are supervised and other creative outlets and structured curriculum. That program also demonstrates its effectiveness in reducing reincarceration. What would be corrections if we didn't talk a little bit about religious services and the Religious Land Use Incarcerated Persons Act? I wanted to highlight the number of spiritual services we support. It is tiny writing, so I'll get it to you in digital format so you can zoom in. But my spiritual leaders across the organization do a robust job, and I can't say enough about the volunteers that come into our institutions and help support pathways to spiritual health. And I think that's an important overlay for people. If it's something they want, then we want to make sure it's available to them, because we do find it really helps people, again, stop returning to incarceration. I hope you heard my theme about stopping returning to incarceration, because we're going to head to probation and parole. The next slide is an infographic that gives you the average caseloads for 2023 and 2024 by district office. I've spent most of my tenure trying to sure the ship in this area. We would, as I indicated, we want to partner effectively with our judiciary and those specialty courts, but the department didn't get any additional probation and parole officers. So I balanced using the state's reallocation process to create more probation and parole officers to equalize their caseloads. When I took over, bless you, their caseloads were 1 to 100 or more. In some cases, it was 1 probation and parole officer to 125 supervisees. The national statistics to meet is 1 to 55, and that also depends on the risk of the caseload of the persons they're supervising. So I hope I said that right. So we'll give you what our 5 levels of supervision are, and we have reduced those caseloads closer to the national average. There are a couple other district offices that exist today where some of those ratios are 1 to 80, and we're still working to correct that process through our own means. But with the passage of Veterans Court, we don't have additional staff, and we're trying to figure out how to navigate and support that process. The next slide does get a little bit more detailed so you can read it better, the types of supervision across the state, and then detailed description of caseload by type of supervision, by location across the state are the next following slides. So to the point of the question, the research done by the Council of State Governments and its interpretation, we don't have a high parole violation rate. So when you look at the number of individuals on parole supervision, there's approximately just over 2,000. It's not a high number of those on supervision that are coming back, but it is somewhere around the 1% of those people that come back annually, affecting the beds that we use in the prison system. So I just want to be clear, there's not a high parole violation rate, but the number that comes back takes up about 40% of those beds. So I just don't want everyone to think that our probation parole officers are just violating parole all the time. So with that stated, you're going to see a graph that looks like this. And what that is a summary of the adult parole board's revocation reasons about revocation of parole. And those things are around returning to criminal behavior, engagement in substance use, usually that's multiple relapses, lack of compliance with their substance use treatment plan, and then commonly found in possession with the intent to distribute illegal drugs. Our probation and parole officers are making the right decisions at the right time to bring people back to incarceration. But what it tells me is when someone returns, I need to make sure I have the substance use treatment and those pathways to re-engage that process. One of the struggles, as articulated both by my probation and parole team and the adult parole board, is granting somebody the privilege of the parole to go to a treatment service and they never show up and they abscond and then they become a fugitive. That doesn't serve any of us well. And we have approximately 300 people right now in a fugitive status on our caseload. So I give this information to you because The work we're doing on the 1115A waiver is fundamentally simple. If we can get people connected and have that therapeutic relationship with their provider before they leave, they're very much more likely to go to the third appointment and the fourth appointment and stay compliant with treatment. And we really think that will make a marked difference in continuing to reduce our recidivism rate. So I see some hands up.
Very briefly, on that graphic, one of the components is revoked for community failure. What's community failure?
That's a great question. The Adult Parole Board basically says all of the assets we tried to engage with you, it didn't matter what they were, it failed. You essentially failed in the community.
Representative Muse.
Thank you. I'm wondering about what percentage of people who actually apply for parole and receive a parole hearing actually wind up getting paroled? And is there a lot of variation depending on the type of crime?
Representative Muse, I would definitely defer that question to the Adult Parole Board, who's an independent body. And I will talk with Chairman Roger Phillips to make sure we get that information to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. In anecdotal sense, most individuals are granted the privilege of parole at their first hearing.
Representative Murray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was curious, you mentioned that sexual assault is, a significant portion of why people end up incarcerated, but then the number of people, sorry, I'm going back to the page. The number of people basically taking advantage of the services, the behavioral health sex offender treatment is like a lot lower than I would expect. So I'm just curious, like, what is the reasoning behind that? Are people just not taking advantage of it? Or
That's a great question. So the timing of access to that is around their sentence structure. So those 155 people are in a therapeutic community having regular contacts, and we provide people access to that program based on their earliest opportunity to release, factoring if the sentencing document says they can get time off if they complete. So if you will, it's an analytical art of moving them in. What that line does not account for is they may show up in those other lines of service getting other counseling outside of that specific treatment need. So they could be seeing psychiatry. They could also be going to other mental health groups at the same time. You're welcome.
Representative Newell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to echo something that you said. I went to the graduation last year at the women's facility, and it was absolutely amazing. I was in tears. I was the only person who wasn't, staff member or family, but it really made a huge difference to me. So I would just suggest to everyone else that when you get that invitation, it's something that I highly recommend taking advantage of.
Thank you.
And with that being said, if you've completed your presentation, I just wanted to know if we would be welcome to set up another tour for the new members to come by the facilities.
100%, but I would not be done if I didn't tell you the best news. So the last page of your presentation shows the roadmap to reducing our recidivism, and leave it with you to show you initiated programs by year and the changes and shifts in people's return to incarceration. These are when people are released in 2018, we track them for 3 years post their release to see if they return. And a lot of the initiatives that we've started really targeted that first year prior to release to reduce people's reincarceration rate. And we've done an excellent job taking it from 48% when I started down to the average of 40%. And we continue to analyze why people come back, but we also continue to analyze why people are successful. And so we'll continue to pass that information on to this body as you think about the work that we do in New Hampshire. But we're making marked strides. We're doing an excellent job at it. I'm very proud of this New Hampshire Department of Corrections, and I want to thank you for that support. And yes, Chairman, we would love to offer a tour. Jane will be our liaison to that, and we'll take you through those facilities that you choose. Some like to just see the men's prison, some would like to see the women's prison. And I want to assure you, we're making good stride with the monies that were allocated to do the work, the base work to replace the New Hampshire State Prison for Men. The first tranche of $10 million is in contract, and they are doing all of the geological analysis of the property behind the New Hampshire Correctional Facility for Women. And I'm working with our partners at Public Works to get out a request for proposal on the other $40 million that was authorized.
All great news to hear. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. And thank you for coming today. We really appreciate it. And I'm sorry we held you so long.
Oh, you're no apology necessary. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. Let me see. Who do we have next? Attorney Halverson here? If anyone else is here that's going to speak to us that's in a rush or they have a deadline, just raise your hand. Okay.
Good morning. My name is Stephen Endres. I'm actually not Attorney Halverson. Attorney Halverson is my boss. He's the Merrimack County attorney. He couldn't make it today, but I am here from Merrimack County. The county attorneys, each county has a county attorney's office, and the county attorney's offices prosecute all the felonies for the county in the absence of the attorney general. So, as Attorney Velarde said, the Attorney General's office prosecutes homicides, Medicaid fraud, elder abuse, some of those things. Essentially, all the other felonies are prosecuted by the county attorney's offices within each county. In addition, there's, as you heard from Chief Justice McDonald, there's circuit courts where misdemeanors violations are prosecuted. A lot of the county attorney's offices also appear in circuit court to prosecute those misdemeanor and violation level offenses on behalf of certain towns. So, for example, in Merrimack County, the towns of, I know, like Chichester, Canterbury, Hopkinton, Bradford, Newbury, New London, contract with the county attorney's office, and we do their misdemeanor prosecution. Other towns, for example, Concord has its own municipal prosecutor's office that prosecutes misdemeanors in circuit court. In addition to prosecuting criminal cases, felonies, and misdemeanors, we also handle everything within those cases. For example, if competency is raised, that's something our office would handle. We would follow up if a person was found, for example, not competent to stand trial, but was dangerous because of a mental illness. We would follow up and do the non-emergency involuntary admission at probate court for those people as well. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm a frequent person here in front of the committee, which I think is a result of geography in the sense that all the county attorneys talk, but since we're in Concord, it's easier for us to come over and talk. I personally have prosecuted in both circuit court and superior court for a number of years, so I'm happy to give you some insight, sort of the view from the ground of that. And we do, I should point out that the county attorneys, we do talk to each other. We talk to the circuit court prosecutors and get input on a lot of our input and conversation to the committee.
And I can tell you the committee is grateful for your frequent appearances here. They've been very enlightening, and you're a good source for us to bounce some of our crazy ideas off.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, Representative Scheer.
Thank you. Just as a matter of education for those who are new to this committee and haven't had any experience in the criminal justice system, county attorney's offices are funded on a county level, not at the state level.
Correct. The county attorney's offices are funded by the county.
Any questions for Attorney Enders? Well, thank you very much.
you.
I'm sure we'll see you shortly.
Yes, I'll be back.
I see one of our sheriffs out there. Would you like to come up, Sheriff?
Good morning, Chairman and members of this committee. I'm Sheriff Bill Wright. I'm the elected sheriff of Belknap County. I'm also the elected president of the New Hampshire Sheriff's Association, which is made up of all 10 of us sheriffs across the state. A few things about the Sheriff's Association is we meet monthly. All the sheriffs that are available, we meet down at the Police Academy on the third Thursday at 10 a.m. We always invite you folks and anybody else who wants to attend and interact with the sheriff's offices to be part of that. We talk about legislation, upcoming legislation that we'd like to have drafted and brought forward. We talk about the different things that are happening across our communities and things that happen, because each community, of course, is different, but we all have a lot of commonality. So we try to share resources and keep a line of communication open. Our office is a political office, so we come with different views. Not all of us have the same views, and it helps us work through some of the intricate problems of our communities. Basically, that's what we do. We are, the oldest form of law enforcement here in the state, so we take great pride in that. And our duties and responsibilities are found in RSA 104. And then we do work with other RSAs as well as we're added to that. We'd like to have conversations about the different legislation that's being drafted or thought about before it becomes, a full-blown bill. And then we come in and then we look at it a little bit deeper because we look at how it's going to affect. So you may put something in there about a police officer or conservation officer or something like that, but there might be implications to the sheriff's offices as well. So we do a deep dive into that, have discussions, and we most certainly don't want to come before this committee with cards against some of the legislation, but of course we do at times. Now, I've testified before this committee in the past. I'm in my third term, so I've been here a couple times representing both myself as the Sheriff of Belknap County and as previous secretary of the Sheriff's Association, and again, conversation is key, and we want to work through this stuff. So we invite you to be part of that conversation if you choose. We want to be advocates to the criminal justice system and talk about these things. Bail reform, I know, is always big. The different areas of, I listened to the commissioner of the Department of Corrections. The things when people get released on probation or parole, a lot of times the cases will end up back at the Superior Court, which will result in warrants, which then my office has to deal with. So these are all things that, each part is connected. So we are officers of the Superior Court, and we are constitutional officers based on the New Hampshire Constitution. So we take people's rights very serious, and that's what you find from our sheriff's office. I can take questions if you have any.
Would you appreciate it if members had questions about laws that may implicate the sheriffs if they contacted you before they drafted legislation? And if so, can you leave a contact information for people?
Yes, we would definitely appreciate the conversation. Again, you can draft legislation as you choose, and we would never stop that. But being part of the conversation, at least we can give you the insight of where we sit on it, or maybe a different viewpoint that you might not recognize as your intent. And again, sometimes it's just a few extra words in there that really make the difference between us supporting that and us not supporting it. And again, we're a small factor in this, but we are a factor, and it does affect us. So we do appreciate that conversation.
Thank you, Sheriff. Any questions for the Sheriff? Yes, go ahead, Representative No.
I just have a comment. It'd be good for the new legislators to understand that all of us are the legislative body that approve county budgets, and I didn't learn that for a long time.
Yeah, that's true. As our second, everyone who's a new representative, you also know that you're a part of the county delegation, and we vote on the sheriff's budgets. And matter of fact, I think I just got appointed to the chairman of our sheriff in Rockingham. So, yeah.
We appreciate your support, and again, conversation is key. We'll be more than happy. One thing about the sheriff's offices is we try to be as effective and as efficient as we most certainly can, and we answer to you folks as our delegate members, and we are accountable, for every penny in our budget. And when we need extra money, we go before you to ask for that extra money. And so again, conversation is key. We want smaller budgets as well as you do, and we're taxpayers just like everyone else in this room. And but again, effectiveness, and that's what I ask of my delegation members before you start cutting and all that. Ask yourself, am I efficient and am I effective? And if the answer is yes, then let's talk about why I need the increase.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me see who we got left. New Hampshire Public Defenders here? Oh, there.
My name is Suzanne Ketteridge. I'm the interim executive director of the New Hampshire Public Defenders. I took on this role 7 days ago. However, I was a public defender for 15 and a half years. I left the public defenders in 2021 to start my own practice. I retired in June from that practice, and now I'm here. I also worked at the Attorney General's office in the Consumer Protection and Antitrust Division. I want to start, I wish that Chief McDonald was still here because I really would like to have thanked him personally for bringing to the Commission the crisis that we're having right now in the public defender program in New Hampshire. For those of you that are new and aren't familiar with how the criminal justice system works in the state, the Sixth Amendment requires that if the state charges you with a crime, and you could lose your liberty and go to jail as a result of being convicted of that crime, the state has to give you an attorney to represent you if you can't afford to have one yourself. That's where the public defenders come in. We are one of the few states that the public defender program is operated as an independent. We're a nonprofit law firm. The only people we represent, our only client is the state of New Hampshire. We get a contract every 2 years from the state to provide all the indigent defense across the state. So it's a big job. We cover all the counties. As you've heard before, there are 11 superior courts, 17 circuit courts. We have 28 specialty courts. We have 140 attorneys on a good day. That might change because we've lost 3 already. The caseloads are crushing. This is a national issue, and it's affecting New Hampshire. It's particularly affecting our North Country, so those of you that represent Coos County or Grafton County, we're in a crisis mode right now trying to find public defenders that will work in those areas because they're rural. Last year, in 2023, we don't have the numbers for 2024 yet, but in 2023, we handled 21,322 cases, criminal cases, with 140 lawyers who are driving all over the state to courts in all of the different locations. What we do not advocate or testify on behalf of laws. We have a board of directors that oversees us. They do any kind of advocating as far as testifying goes to this committee. And we also are under the supervision, our budget, particularly with the Judicial Council. I think we're one of the few branches that have asked for a significant increase because of the crisis that we're facing. We cannot have people sitting in jail without having legal representation. So we don't like to just complain about issues. We're working on mitigation as well to get more attorneys. Our pay scale for public defenders is not where it needs to be because the work is hard and grueling, and we're losing a lot of lawyers, particularly young ones and older ones, because they're just burning out. The average caseloads right now across the state are running close to 100, and that's just not, it's not manageable. It's not something that can be maintained. So some of the mitigation effects that we're working on, and we welcome any suggestions from anybody that could have particular suggestions. We're looking at trying to hire lateral attorneys across the state or outside of the state to come to New Hampshire, particularly in the rural areas, because if we reach out to Colorado or we reach out to Wyoming, we may be able to poach lateral attorneys that are experienced and want to live in more rural communities. We're looking at, I noticed earlier that I don't recall one of you asked the question regarding, do we work with UNH School of Law? Thank you, Chairman. I've met with them this week. We do work with them. They have an excellent criminal clinic, and they take cases for us. They're limited in the number of these are students, so they can't have heavy caseloads, but we are working closely with them as well. We are considering asking the Supreme Court to change Rule 36, and what that is, it's a rule that allows people that are like third-year law students that aren't members of the bar yet, but they can practice in court under the supervision of a bar attorney in the state. If we can get laterals coming from other states, and it takes a while, I'm not sure what the process is to waive in or take the bar in New Hampshire, but if we could adjust it to perhaps accommodate experience. When I say lateral attorneys, I'm talking about experienced attorneys. The public defenders are usually staffed by young attorneys coming out of law school that want to do public service work. But when you have caseloads this high, you really need to have enough experienced attorneys to be able to mentor and train the younger attorneys to be able to take on more cases. So those are the mitigation issues we're working on right now to try to bring solutions to the table regarding this issue. As far as the consequences of the laws that are passed by this commission, our responsibility in administration is to keep all of our attorneys informed of any laws that are passed, criminal laws, any changes to the laws, and what sort of collateral effects those laws might have. Because when you pass a law, for instance, as an example, armed career criminal, which was passed many decades ago, the collateral issues of that are, it's a mandatory sentence. And when I say mandatory, it means that a judge has no discretion in determining what the sentence should be. We don't have that many mandatory sentences in the state, but that's one that's a particular issue because it eliminates any kind of discretion that a judge can have. And I can get into more details if anybody has questions about that. Or thefts, for instance. When the law was passed that a third theft, we're talking shoplifting, can be charged as a felony. And a felony is anything that results in prison time. So a misdemeanor is anything that can result up to 12 months in jail. And a felony, as was stated earlier, is anything that goes over that 365 days. And that would require that they go to prison. So a law such as what we would call a 3 strikes law, where 2 shopliftings lead to misdemeanors, but you get a third shoplifting, that can be a felony, which changes the workload of the attorney and also affects court dockets across the state. Those are the things that we are dealing with right now. I don't have a packet to hand out. Yes.
Thank you. I have to admit that much to the chagrin of Ms. Ketteridge, she's a former student of mine. So she carries that through her life, unfortunately. What's the starting pay? 3 questions. What's the starting pay for a public defender?
I am reluctant to give any specifics because this is my 7th day on the job. I believe it's in the, and again, this is with the caveat, I can provide all this information upon request that's more definitive. 67,000, I believe.
Thank you.
And it caps out.
Second question. Several years ago, a combination of legislation and court rule, the court was obligated, the courts are obligated to appoint counsel before somebody is arraigned. My understanding, so that they have on a misdemeanor to which they're entitled to counsel, a Class A misdemeanor and a felony. It's my understanding that that's just because of staffing reasons. That's been a struggle for the public defender program. Is that getting any better, or is that?
I want to say thank you for that question. I'm not sure. Actually, arraignments are a big issue. I have spent 2 of the last 3 days talking to several of the managing attorneys throughout the state, and the arraignments are causing a major problem. You can be arrested for a misdemeanor offense, and cash bail is requested, or cash bail is put into effect. You have to have an attorney if you're, especially at that point, if you're going to go to jail for a misdemeanor. A lot of the arraignments are being done by video, and you have to have, in the old days, let's say, you didn't necessarily have an attorney there at that point. That's not the case anymore, so you're correct. But that is a big issue that I've discovered in the last 7 days, is the system for arraignments for incarcerated misdemeanor clients is severe. And I don't know what the solutions are, or if it's getting better, for that matter.
And one last thing, and just a comment. Decades ago now, when I was a public defender, I managed a couple offices, and we never had lawyers in our offices with caseloads of over 55, even the more senior lawyers. And that's just to give the members of the committee a sense of how acute the problem is right now.
It's acute throughout the country, and some states are going through litigation. Maine, in particular, they didn't have a public defender program. Idaho, other states are being. I'm not going. Again, I'm hesitant to say with specificity, but legal actions are taking against certain states because the public defender programs are in such crisis that you have people sitting in jail for a long period of time without a lawyer. New Hampshire, I would say, I still believe, we're a small state, so I think we have a way of putting our arms around crises that bigger states can't do. And I think we have a very good program. We're known throughout the country as a great place to get trained. That's still in effect. That's still our reputation. That we do not just hire an attorney and throw them into a courtroom. That doesn't do anyone any good. We train them for 6 weeks. We give them mentors, and then we send them out there. COVID caused a big disruption, and a lot of that. A lot of the younger attorneys didn't get that hands-on collegial one-on-one training that they would have gotten during COVID because everything went remote. So I'm trying to determine how much of an impact that might have had.
Representative Sell.
Thank you for taking my question. It might be a little bit unfair because you've been in the position such a short time, but there is a pool of experienced attorneys who might not have roots anywhere in the country. I'm speaking in terms of veterans who are getting out of the military, JAG officers who have significant legal background, who might be looking to relocate to New Hampshire because we have so much to offer. I'm just wondering if in the public defender's office, are there any efforts to reach out and recruit veterans?
That is a very good suggestion, and that is exactly the type of thing that I'm looking for as the director. And I don't know the answer to that, but that's what I will be finding out in the next 2 days and determining if we're doing that. There's a great pool of attorneys in the state that are criminal defense attorneys, so we would get the first assigned counsel, goes to the public defenders if they're indigent. And if we have a conflict, then it goes to a different group. We have contract attorneys. Contract attorneys and there may be some veterans amongst our whole. I know we have veterans that are public defenders in the state. I'll look into that. But just to explain, so we take the first case. If we are not a conflict, we take all the criminal cases for indigent defendants. If there's a conflict, we have a contract attorney group. They actually have a contract with the state to take a certain amount. They don't have to take the cases, but they have a contract to take cases if we give them the cases. Then we have another group called assigned counsels. Assigned counsel don't have any contracts, but they take cases at a higher rate than the contract council makes, which doesn't make a lot of sense when you think about it. And even those rates are low. They're, top of my head, I'm saying $125 an hour, $100 an hour. The cases that we are dealing with in the state, and that's been referenced several times, are very complicated. We have a lot of sexual assault cases. Those are extremely complicated cases to manage. Homicides have gone up. Those are very difficult cases. We work with the attorney generals on that. We have a high degree of mental health issues among our clients. Clients have become much more needier than in the last 10 years. A lot of homeless population, a lot of mental health issues with those homeless, a lot of drug addiction. That all complicates the cases. And electronic discovery. Electronic discovery is just made, and I would say across the aisle, the YDC case was referenced earlier. There are over 1 million pages of discovery in that case. And in my private practice, I actually had one of those cases, and I don't any longer because I left my practice. So the issues among the workload and I'm sorry, Representative, I didn't answer your question, but I would like to find out myself, now that you've brought that up, how many veterans we do have that may be in the public defenders and how we could reach out to others that are looking to expand their legal career or go into this type of work.
Follow up, Mr. Chairman. One of the things that I'm sure you struggle with is to have a public defender's office that reflects the racial and ethnic community that you represent. In New Hampshire, I'm sure recruiting minorities is very difficult. By expanding the pool of applicants to include veterans, you would significantly help in that regard. So thank you. It's not a question. I'm just.
I very much appreciate the insight and the input, though, in that, because we are struggling with retaining
And you'd want to,
recruiting.
a good point of contact would be the State Adjutant General's office. They can put you in touch with people in the Department of Defense who would be able to, maybe you could put some type of an ad together for retiring DOD jacks. Representative Newman.
Do you expect that there will be any impact from the new magistrate law that's been passed for arraignments and stuff like that? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I am not able to answer that question right now. As I said, arraignments went up to the top of my list within the last 2 days because of the input I'm getting from the attorneys.
Okay. Thank you for coming today and sharing with us. And if you have any more updates, we'd be happy to hear them as you are here a little bit longer.
Yes, and well, I'll be here for quite a while. And I think that if anybody has any questions regarding the process, feel free to reach out to me.
We will.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much. Do we have Chief Crowley?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Excuse me. My name is Tim Crowley. I'm the chief in the town of Atkinson. I'm here representing the New Hampshire Association of Chiefs of Police, as I was recently elected president, and a position that I feel very fortunate to have. The New Hampshire Association of Chiefs of Police represents 194 different police departments across the state of New Hampshire. We have 165 active members. We meet as a general body every other month. We meet as an executive committee every on the months that we don't meet with the full membership. Our purposes are multifaceted. One, we want to maintain a focus on keeping the profession in the state of New Hampshire of the level that it's at right now. When you come from another state and you see what the standard is to be a law enforcement officer in New Hampshire, you realize how high that standard is. And we do everything in our power to maintain that that standard and make sure that we're always using best practices when we recruit, we hire, we train, and we try to retain the officers that are working out there, because it's very important. It's a great job. It's the best job in the world. but it comes with a lot of challenges. So as an organization, when we meet, we have perspectives from a town like Atkinson, which is small, and then you get the perspective from chiefs and command level people from a Concord or a Manchester or a Nashua to hear the issues that of concern to them. Because a lot of times we see the same things, small town, large community, just at a different volume. So our job is very complicated. We do a lot of different things. One of the most important parts of the organization is working with committees like this and legislation, because our primary focus is to keep New Hampshire one of the safest, if not the safest state in the country to live in. And that comes with a lot of responsibility, because we don't police the state of New Hampshire, we protect the state of New Hampshire. And there's a fine line to that. So as an organization, that's what we try to do. And it's not always easy, and it's always up for discussion because we have different perspectives. And it's great to be able to, one of the things that I've learned, and I've only been here since 18 and part of this organization, but coming to the State House or going to different committee meetings, is the ability and the willingness of people to listen and to work together and to come up with solutions when it's a challenge. Because our perspective of what we see and your perspective of what you see are different in a lot of cases. In the experience that's part of this organization can't be replaced. You have, I mean, I'm in year 42, and you have some officers that have been on less than 10 years that are now chiefs or commanders in their organizations. So as much as you get changes in technology and scrutiny and ways of solving crimes, when a crime commits, you got to go out and you got to solve it. You got to work with evidence. You got to work with the science, and you got to come up with somebody and hold them responsible for what they did. And that's all well and good, but our primary focus is trying to prevent that crime from happening in the first place. So that's what we do. And when we meet, that's what we try to maintain that focus. So from the hiring personnel to get the right people on the job, training them and always updating that and maintaining the high level of standard that New Hampshire has, that's what our organization does. And it's interesting to see and listen to people who have been in different agencies or different situations, whether they've been in training or lawyers, and it's been a great learning experience. And I really look forward to this year because we want to maintain that high quality of life for the state of New Hampshire. And I'd be willing to take any questions or comments.
Thank you, Chief. I asked this question. I am finishing up a term as a police commissioner in Portsmouth, and we are in the process of implementing body cams in Portsmouth. It was a long time coming, but we're doing that. Do you have two questions? Do you have any sense of how many departments in New Hampshire now have body cams? And second question is, what, if anything, can the legislature do to encourage other, particularly smaller departments that don't have them, to get them?
I don't have an exact percentage. I know that it grows every year. You see more departments with them, and at some point we will have them. I think they're a great tool. One of the things that's kept smaller agencies from doing it is the expense. And not to get into a body cam discussion, but buying the camera is the least of the cost. It's the storage and the redaction. I worked in the city of Lowell before I came up here. The Middlesex County District Attorney said, if you people go to body cams, which they've since gone to, I will have to hire 5 additional ADAs just to do video storage, redaction, and what presentation. So there's a lot of companies now, there's a little more competition, so the cost is coming down. I think if there's grant opportunities for smaller agencies like ourselves, I mean, we could buy it now, but then to maintain it, it's cost prohibitive right now, but the cost is coming down because the competition is going up.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you very
We'll
much.
see you at some point throughout the year, I'm
Oh,
sure.
no doubt. Thank you.
Thanks. We have, let me see, from the ACLU, Amanda Azad. Is she here? Oh.
Thank you, everybody. Chairman, members of the committee, this is my first time speaking in the LOB, so I am new as of this summer to the ACLU of New Hampshire. Amanda Azad, I'm the policy director. I was previously in the past with the ACLU of Arizona. Very happy to be here. Prefer the weather over the desert for sure. I'm going to keep it very brief, and I have business cards. I'm happy to chat with anyone or connect you all with other folks in our office if that's ever helpful. I just want to give a very brief overview of what the ACLU is, the American Civil Liberties Union, and then just show my face, get to see you all. Looking forward to being here in the future. So the ACLU itself is an organization that's been around for over 100 years. The ACLU of New Hampshire was founded in the 60s. We are a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that does not accept any government funding. We are also, importantly to note, a membership organization. So we have over 150 million members as of now, and we preserve the individual rights and liberties guaranteed by the Constitution. So we like to think of the Bill of Rights and the Constitution as our client. So we have different buckets of work, a lot of which you will all see, but much of it you will not see here at the legislature. So we, of course, do litigation, something that's we're very well known for. We've gone, for example, to the Supreme Court more than any other organization except for the Department of Justice. So we are certainly an organization with many, many attorneys. We also do legislative advocacy. We also do, importantly, education in the community, know your rights, so that individuals can represent themselves, they can advocate for themselves, and they understand their rights under the law. Lastly, we do a lot of organizing within the community. Again, we think it's really important for individuals to be able to protect themselves and stand up for themselves. So we focus on equality and fighting discrimination for over 100 years. That goes from the Japanese internment cases to segregation in schools and interracial marriage, to the different issues that we're seeing today. One of the really big issues that we're going to come before this committee in particular and talk about is mass incarceration. Several of the speakers today have addressed that issue. It's something that's been really overwhelming for some time now. We care deeply about defending the rights of those coming in contact with the criminal legal system. So there are many, many different issue areas within the criminal justice system that we address. Mass incarceration being at the top of the list. Government overreach, government transparency is very important to us. Due process, pretrial confinement, the list goes on, racial disparities, and much, much more. I just want to flag some very basic things, and then I'll let you chat with everyone else waiting here today. The U.S. currently spends over $80 billion on incarceration. And that is just a mind-blowing number. And I don't know the exact dollar amount for New Hampshire, but I'm sure we spend a great deal. Some related work that you all might have questions about in the future is privacy and technology. We cover that. Free speech is something that we're best known for and very proud of. We do immigrants' rights, juvenile justice, and many other issues. We have defended many controversial and unpopular groups because we believe strongly in the right to free expression and free assembly and other constitutional rights, and we are proud of that. Once the government has the power to violate one person's rights, can be used that power against anyone and everyone, and that's something that we think of quite a bit in our office here in New Hampshire. So one of our main concerns, we incarcerate our people more than any other country by far. For just to put this in context, we are 5% of the world's population here in the United States. We are more than 20% of the people who are in prison. So it's just truly mind-boggling when you look at the data and the numbers around incarceration. I myself, I'm happy to meet with any of you all, and I hope to get to know you while we work together going forward. I've covered a lot of unique issues from religious freedom, something that's also very important to the ACLU. I've worked with tribal students, Native students, on being able to wear tribal regalia at school graduations. I've done litigation surrounding First Amendment and protesting. Prison conditions and the right to medical care and pregnancy and postpartum supplies while incarcerated is something that's been really important. And addressing disparities in school arrest and discipline. So thank you for letting me get up here and share, just getting over a little bit of a cold myself. So I appreciate being able to have some of your time. I'll leave these here if anybody wants to reach out. So thank you very much.
And last but certainly not least, Pam Collig with the coalition. Oh dear.
It's two-seater. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Amanda Grady Sexton, and I am the Director of Public Affairs for the New Hampshire Coalition Against Domestic and Sexual Violence. And I am joined by Pamela Kylig, who is our public policy specialist and one of the best hires that I've ever made. By way of background, I am a city councilor here in Concord, New Hampshire, and I chair our Public Safety Advisory Board, and I've also been with the New Hampshire Coalition since 2001 as an intern that I've been spending time coming before this committee. And before I turn things over to Pamela to give you an overview of the coalition and our member programs, and more information about ways that we can assist you as a committee, I just wanted to congratulate all of you for being appointed to this committee. I think it's a very important committee in the House. Polling in New Hampshire consistently shows that public safety is one of the most important things to your constituents. Having a safe state, safe communities, and a safe home are their top priority. And so we thank you all for your service here. And again, congratulations on your elections, re-elections, and being on this very important committee. Thank you. Pamela.
Thank you, Amanda. Thanks, everyone. It's really great to be back in this committee. I have had the privilege of being able to work with you over the years. I think this is my 6th legislative session. I know they go by really quickly, but we are just so grateful to be able to work with you from year to year on these critical issues. Like Amanda said, I'm the public policy specialist at the coalition, but we do have a team that keeps an eye on legislation, and you also will probably see some of our program colleagues who work on issue areas that I'll highlight in a little bit throughout the session as well. So we are the umbrella organization for the 12 member programs across the state who operate crisis centers and emergency shelters and cover issues of domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, child abuse, and human trafficking. And so we are, very present in this committee. And I've brought some materials that I'll pass around to all of you just to highlight a few key statistics, a handout specifically on the cost of trauma. I know we just heard a little bit about the cost of incarceration, but I think the other side of the coin is the cost of victimization. So I think that's a really helpful handout just to know that there's a lifetime cost that comes, especially for those abused as children, but even into adulthood, and an economic impact that we have not only on individuals, but on the state and country as well as a policy brief on human trafficking. I know that's a really big issue area, and so we are happy to highlight that, and a few other materials as well. So hopefully they'll be helpful to you all, but we are just grateful to be a resource. So as I mentioned, we're the umbrella organization for the 12 member programs. And one of our biggest roles as the coalition is working on statewide policy work. And we really pride ourselves in collaborating with a variety of stakeholders, many of whom you already heard today in this room presenting. So state agencies, nonprofit and advocacy organizations, as well as healthcare professionals, law enforcement officers, legal representatives, advocates, and then also victims and survivors. So we really try to work across, the entire spectrum of folks that may be impacted by these issues, and try to be as collaborative as possible. And I think this is one of the rare issues that Amanda mentioned that really has broad bipartisan support and tremendous public support for victims of crime in the state. And as a result, we have some of the strongest laws and protocols in the nation. And that's all a part of the great work that you all do here and just the dedication to these issues. And so, we just really appreciate, the hard work that you do in this committee. When we bring forward legislation or when we weigh in on proposals, we really try to be, as careful as we can when we're vetting these things. Usually when we're testifying, we've already run it by several other stakeholders, just to get a sense of, what not only what the principle of the policy is, but how that is going to implement on the ground. Because I think implementation and enforcement of policies is the most fundamental part of doing impactful work in the state. So we really try to heavily vet all of these proposals and just be a great resource. If we don't have the answers, we are happy to find the right person to sit in front of you to help guide and provide that information. And I think it's just really important that we try to come with a very balanced perspective. We want to make sure that public safety is at the core of what we do. And we aren't trying to tip the scales of justice because there are victims of domestic and sexual violence, but there are also savvy abusers who know to operate within the system. And it's important to really look holistically at these processes. So we're not just here, yes, we're here advocating on behalf of victims and our crisis centers, but we really just want the most effective and efficient system that we possibly can have in New Hampshire. And so that's why this is just such an important process for us. And then, so just kind of like an overview of our legislative work. And so please feel free to reach out. Our cards are in the folders. We are happy to answer questions, happy to help look into issues. You'll probably see me here almost every day that you're meeting. So just please use us. We're happy to be a resource. Just to quickly highlight our member programs because they're your resources and the resources for your constituents. So like I said, we have these 12 member programs. Within this is also our catchment map. So you can see where those are located and their contact information. We serve, our member programs serve around 15,000 victims of crime every year, in addition to doing prevention education in the communities. And we also operate 11 emergency shelters. And those shelters provide shelter to around 400 adults and children annually. So they're a key part to communities. Crisis centers provide an array of services and referrals, including access to confidential advocates, like I mentioned, emergency shelter and housing, as well as helping find a placement in transitional housing, and just, being an immediate resource they can for folks fleeing violence. As well as economic justice, so offsetting the costs of any sort of financial abuse that may occur. As well as funding for immediate basic needs. Many survivors just don't have groceries or phone cards or gas or rent. And so we really want to make sure that them and their children are able to get those basic needs as quickly as possible. They also provide safety planning, connection to legal services. So you heard the Chief Justice speak this morning, working within the court to provide services is a fundamental part of the work that they do, as well as hospital advocacy and accompaniment, especially in sexual assault cases, as well as then just being a connection to community resources such as mental health, substance use treatment, and so on. So, our victims in New Hampshire often have, an array of services that they need. And I think that goes back to the cost of trauma that I mentioned earlier. So the core thing is really just making sure that folks have what they need to get back on their feet and be stable in their communities. I just wanted to quickly highlight a couple of our programs that I mentioned that are under our umbrella. So the first one is the Human Trafficking Collaborative Task Force. So New Hampshire has a partnership that is dedicated to improving the statewide response to human trafficking. And so the coalition helps direct that and partners with key stakeholders, including the Department of Justice, Homeland Security, investigations, state police, U.S. attorneys, crisis center advocates, legal representatives, and so on, to help ensure that victims of human trafficking, whether it's labor or sex trafficking, have the resources they need, but that also we can address these horrific cases. Like I mentioned, there's a policy brief on that, but that's something that if you are interested in learning more about the programming and what that looks like here in New Hampshire, because it's everything from, cross-border, truck stop sex trafficking to, unfortunately, familial trafficking, where we see children, unfortunately being impacted by this. So it looks a little different, but it happens in all corners of the state, unfortunately. So this is a huge issue we'd be happy to speak more on and be a resource on. And then I think the other one that I think is really relevant to your committee is the Sexual Assault Nurse Examiner program. I know representatives of that program have come in the past to talk about anything related to sexual assault cases, whether it's, DNA analysis, rape kits, physical injuries, and things like that. So those experts, both medical experts, are able to come in and talk more about what they're seeing and how we can best respond to those cases as well. So I think before I just wrap up, I just want to remind you that we're a resource, and we're happy to be here to help. And we really try to be as responsive as possible. So please call Amanda and I anytime for anything. We will always make ourselves available. If you have questions about a last minute amendment, help for your constituents, help understanding services, or help, with legislation, we really want to be a resource for you in whatever way we can, and are just grateful, that we get to do this work with you all. Did you have anything? No, that was fantastic. Yeah, we're happy to take any questions.
Great. Thank you so much. Any questions? I can tell the members that are new that they are here a lot, and I enjoy working with them, and they're very helpful on legislation. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you.
I believe, is there anyone else who wanted to address the committee that hasn't yet? Okay.
I'll be very quick because I know I'm between you and lunch. I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Kate Fry. I'm the Vice President of Advocacy at New Futures. We're a health policy organization. We work on the health and wellness of New Hampshire residents. In this particular committee, you may see me or someone else on issues related to harm reduction, substance use disorder, and any criminal penalties related to that. So I just wanted to introduce myself and thank you.
Thank you for coming up. We appreciate it. All right, that's going to be our last presenter for the day. I just wanted to go over a few things with the committee members that I haven't had a chance to talk to you yet. Those of you who were here last year, you kind of know how I operate. Those of you who are new may not. I'm going to ask for the same things we did last year because it was very successful. We are Democrats and we are Republicans, but I would ask that we maintain between ourselves and this committee a certain level of collegiality. And that includes not bashing each other on social media, on X or where is it. There are plenty of other Democrats and plenty of other Republicans that you can bash over the head on social media, but leave the ones in this committee alone if you don't mind. It makes it easier for us to work together, so I would appreciate that. And I would appreciate that if you are not going to be here, let your ranking member or myself or the vice chairman know that you're not going to be here, especially on executive session days, so that they have a chance to get a replacement for you. And was there anything else? Hold on. What? Oh, yeah. When we have people come in and testify, a lot of times we have victims of crimes come in here and testify. And I know we've addressed this already with the Republicans, but if it's a victim of a crime or for example, the mother of someone who's passed away from a crime, I would ask, unless it's absolutely necessary, to not ask them questions, let them give their testimony. We will be heartfelt and thank you very much for sharing. And we feel, and let them go. And I think that's about it. Remember, while we're asking questions in this committee, we're very professional. We want to get answers. We don't want no gotchas. It's just, if you already know the answer, don't ask them. It's to elicit information. So we want to do that. I run a very kind of loose committee. I like everyone to talk. We learn more when we talk. So I'm not a real stickler for, necessarily, I don't want to say the rules, but I'm not, that I'm not a stickler. So if you have a question, you raise your hand and let you go. I usually don't stop people. I let them talk. As long as we don't abuse that, I don't have to start using that stupid hammer. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wondering if you have a sense of what days we'll be meeting?
Yeah, we're going to be doing, we have Thursdays and Fridays and occasional Wednesdays. We share with Ways and Means. They have Monday, Tuesdays, and occasional Wednesdays. We'll split depending on, it's a money year, so they're going to have priority. So I would like to do just like I did last year. If the people that weren't here, we got out of here early. I'd rather stay here in the winter when it's nasty and be free when the weather gets nice. So we're going to knock these things out. We're going to be done way before our deadline, and we'll only have to come back for session days. And I hope you guys agree with that's the best way to do it. I don't want to hang around here all spring, because remember, we go to June, and I had us out of here last year. When was it? April, we were done. Yeah. So I want to do that again this year. And we had 50 bills. Representative Muse.
One of the major differences between this year and the previous session is the change in the rules around noticing of executive sessions.
Yeah.
And I know that committee chairs have a lot of discretion. I also know that we deal with some extremely complicated bills, and one of the worst parts of being a legislator can be showing up for a series of hearings on totally different issues, and then immediately after those hearings have to do an executive session on a bill you haven't thought about in 3 weeks. And yeah. I'm just curious how you intend to kind of navigate through that this year.
It's too, for me, all those gotcha executive sessions are too complicated. I want to notice them the traditional way. If I put a notice in the calendar that says executive session may be held, then we may hold it that day, but I will let the ranking member know in the morning. There's going to be no surprise exec, haha. That's not how I operate. No laptops, David. Yeah.
I thought it might be helpful. I know for the new members to maybe meet Brad and maybe get an understanding of why he's sitting there at that desk typing away madly, and
he's like
and how he can help us all.
The man behind the curtain. Yeah, thank you for that suggestion, Dave. Bradley Greenland, he's our committee researcher. If you have any questions about a law that you want to write or that's coming in this committee, he can find the information for you, be it in this state or another state, or what we've done on law in the past. A lot of times bills that come in this committee have actually been here before 10 times 10 years ago, and he will be able to look up and say, this is what you guys voted in the committee back then. Anything else would you like to address the committee? Yeah. Okay. If anyone didn't get that, where's the printing policy? You said it should be at our desk. We didn't see it. If you send one to every member so they understand the printing policy and how to go about getting amendments, that would be awesome. I would appreciate it. For those of you, who's new here totally to the legislature? Okay, so a lot of what we've been talking about sounds like crazy talk, I'm sure. If you have a question about anything, about an amendment, about how the process works, you grab one of us and we'll help walk you through it. You only have to see that once and you'll be on it. So if you feel yourself getting overwhelmed or confused, just raise your hand, tell me, hey, you're losing me here. And I'd be happy to walk through it. Anyone else want to say anything? What? Oh, laptops. I don't mind. What I don't want to see is walls of laptops. I know David has a condition, and that's fine. If you need your computer, that's fine. If you need to get something, look up something. What I don't want to see, please, is people we have seen before who would be doing gotcha stuff, like looking on the thing. Hey, well, it says right here that you did this. No. But other than that, you know how I am. I'm fine. Yes.
I just want to say I appreciate that because it's helpful sometimes when we're talking about a law.
Yeah.
And it goes to a particular, talking about a particular law, and you need to know how the bill that affects a particular law. It's easier if you can get access to the law and then see how and that's what.
Yeah, while someone's testifying, I'd rather not see a wall of laptops, but if we're getting into an exec session or we're looking up something, that's absolutely okay with me.
And I really appreciate that.
No, thanks. What else?
It's more of me when we're doing an executive, I'm sorry, when we're doing a hearing, if to get my attention and I'll write their name down so people aren't interrupting.
Oh yeah, if you have a question and I'm focused on the person testifying, get Jen's attention so she or Allie, my clerk, one of their attentions. So I know that there's a question out there because I can't see to my left like David. I won't see him past these people. And the same thing, if you have a question, make sure you get one of their attention and I'll call on you.
Just go like this. I'll acknowledge that I see you and I'll write your name down. That way you don't have to just keep on raising your hand or thinking you're not being seen. I'll make eye contact. I don't think we had any issues last year unless it was something I couldn't see, but we do our best to be able to see that. So.
Sometimes Jen and I talk behind Terry's back.
All the time. All the time. We actually just kind of push his head down, tell him he's in our way. We'll take it.
If you have a medical issue where, like if we're going and you need to get lunch or something, just make sure you pass the message down that we need a break, or if you just need a break. Sometimes I'll go a couple hours. Sometimes I try to take a bio break every hour and a half. So that should be okay. Any other questions from anybody before I let you get out of here? Next week, we're going to be here 3 days.
Wednesday, Thursday.
Yeah.
I don't think we got this. I don't think we have the notice yet for Friday.
There is. Did everyone get Friday's notice?
No.
Why did she not send that
I
out?
don't know. I just know I got Wednesdays and Thursdays.
Huh? Yeah, she should have. Okay. All right. Well, we're going to be here at least Wednesday, Thursday. I scheduled Friday. I don't know why it hasn't been sent out. Check your emails. That's another thing. If I send you an email and I ask a question, even if it doesn't pertain to you, if I just let me know you got the email, because I'll look at my screen and I'm not getting responses. Like if my email has been going out, just keep your eyes on your email because that's my main communication method. No, I don't care. Yeah, no. Just no food while we're in here on the tables. You can drinks is fine with me. Just don't be breaking out sandwiches and stuff. Yeah. And that's it. I'll see you all next week.